Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White and White Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Thursday, the 17th of April 2025. Yes, we have brought back the Talking News one day this week to take account of the long impending Easter weekend. My apologies for not being here last week. I was actually away on holiday with some friends to celebrate my 55th birthday in Bucharest. We had a great time and visited the Therm Spa, which is gaining worldwide recognition as the largest spa in at least Europe, possibly the world. We had a great weekend. On the Thursday we arrived and it was actually snowing, so we sat in a thermally heated spa with the snow falling on ahead, which was quite an experience. Last week, I went to Warner's with 18 of our members. We had a great couple of nights, singing, dancing, act showing, laser quest, and all sorts going on. It really was a very enjoyable 2 days. I'm sure Susan will fill you in on the plans for the next holiday. I can't recommend it highly enough if you are able to make it. Let's hope that this Easter weekend stays warm and sunny. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Sight for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news, 18th of April, 2025. There is no swimming on Monday due to school holidays and a bank holiday. Swimming will resume on Monday the 28th of April.
There is yoga at Millbrook House on Tuesday between 1:45pm and 2:45pm. This group is now full, but if you wish to put your name down on the waiting list, please call the office.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 o'clock until 11:30. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Our monthly stride is on Friday around the New Church area. If you would like to join us for this 5-mile stride and a pub lunch, please call the office for more details.
Our pudding and quiz night is on Friday. We have now reached our maximum capacity, but if you would like to go on the reserve list, please call the office.
Our office will be closed on Monday due to the bank holiday and will reopen on Tuesday, the 22nd of April at 9 o'clock. We wish you all a very happy Easter.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Bembridge Seafront Cafe approved following glut of support. A new seafront cafe will be built in an Isle of Wight village after receiving 91 letters of support. County Hall granted SE View permission to build a cafe at Kingsmere on Lane End Road in Bembridge, with approved plans also including parking spaces, a garden, bike storage and a pedestrian walkway. The decision is in the face of 11 objections, including opposition from Bembridge Parish Council, BPC. BPC cited insufficient parking provision and an adverse impact on the area's character, appearance and neighbouring properties. Explaining the approval, planners wrote, the proposed development would be a high-quality, modern design and would represent an investment into the local and wider tourism offer in Bembridge. It is considered that any harm caused by this proposal would be minimal and would not outweigh the overall benefits in terms of the economic and social benefits and bringing back into use previously developed land, removing the existing unused and unattractive structure in place. The use proposed is considered appropriate for this seafront location, with a historic cafe use on site, and highways and ecological matters can be dealt with via condition.
This is Chris reading an article from On the White. New Route 18 bus service improves access between Southsea and QA Hospital. Hover Travel is delighted to announce that Stagecoach's popular Route 18 bus service has been enhanced to include a new extension to Clarence Pier, offering even better connectivity for customers travelling between Southsea and QA Hospital. Monday to Saturday and every 30 minutes on Sundays, stopping at Clarence Pier, opposite the Service 18, now runs every 20 minutes from Hover Travel's Southsea Terminal. A smoother journey. This new connection means that for those who need to travel to the mainland for hospital appointments, getting across the water is just the beginning of a smoother journey. Passengers can now enjoy a frequent, direct service from Hover Travel's Southsea Terminal straight to QA Hospital, with the reliability and convenience of Stagecoach's enhanced timetable. Reduced fares. In addition, hospital patients and visitors can save money with the NHS return flight from Ryde to Southsea plus Stagecoach Portsmouth Day Rider combined ticket. This is available in advance online, which includes both the hovercraft and bus journey in one great value fare. Julie Horrocks, Head of Sales and Business Development at Hover Travel, said, "We're thrilled to see the Route 18 extended to Clarence Pier. This improvement not only strengthens connections between Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight, but also enhances access to vital services like QA Hospital." Working in partnership with Stagecoach and Portsmouth City Council, we're proud to offer a more seamless and affordable journey for our customers. Portsmouth Bus Service Improvement Plan. These enhancements are part of the Portsmouth Bus Service Improvement Plan, BSIP, a government-funded initiative delivered in partnership with Portsmouth City Council and local operators like Stagecoach. The improved Route 18 is designed to meet growing demand for faster, more frequent and more accessible public transport across the city, not just for hospital visitors, but also for commuters, students, shoppers and travellers to the Isle of Wight too.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Gets funding green light. Exciting developments ahead. Building the Bay Steering Group has announced that the three Bay councils, Sandown, Lake and Shanklin, have agreed to fund all proposed projects for the coming year. This marks a significant step forward in their mission to enhance the Bay area. The first project, the Bay Business Association, is set to launch at the end of this month. This initiative aims to foster collaboration and growth among local businesses. Additionally, new branding has been developed and will soon be visible across various platforms, highlighting projects and partnerships. Following closely, a second project will introduce a website dedicated to sharing information about Bay Area Place Plan activities. This website will enable residents to stay informed about ongoing projects and find ways to get involved. The steering group are also calling for community champions to help implement ideas from the Place Plan and contribute new ideas that align with its goals. Building the Bay is seeking individuals with expertise and interest in heritage and natural environment. These individuals will not only provide input to existing projects, but also initiate their own special interest-based projects. Meetings are held every 3 months, typically in the evening. More exciting projects are already in the pipeline, aimed at developing our community and environment. Interested individuals can contact Paddy Lightfoot, Chair of Building the Bay, at paddylightfoot@sandowntown.council.gov.uk or Laura Cansdale, Bay Regeneration Programme Manager, at laura.cansdale@iow.gov.uk to discuss the roles. Applicants should email their area of interest and expertise to Building the Bay at iow.gov.uk by the 30th of April.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Court error stalls Bath Road hearing. Landowner denies wall ownership. A paperwork blunder has delayed a court case at the heart of the ongoing closure of Bath Road in Ventnor. A delay that adds to nearly 18 months of mounting community tension. The case relates to a collapsed retaining wall that has forced the closure of Bath Road, overlooking the Esplanade, since October 2023, prompting growing frustration among residents and traders. The frustration came to a head last month when locals took matters into their own hands. Richard Burrows, the owner of the adjacent property and director of Burrows 2 Investments Limited, is appealing against a repair notice issued by the Isle of Wight Council. He argues that the wall is not within his ownership and therefore is not his responsibility to fix. However, the appeal has been delayed twice now due to the summons being incorrectly sent to Ringway Island Roads Limited rather than the local authority. The case was originally listed on the 19th of March, but was adjourned when Ringway stated the summons had been misdirected. On Monday, the 13th of April, Mr. Burrows appeared at Brighton Magistrates Court alongside a representative from Ringway Island Roads. The case was once again adjourned after the error was repeated. Richard Burrows told the court, "The wall at the bottom of the garden has collapsed, causing the road to be closed for 2 years. Traders in Ventnor are frustrated. It's like any small seaside resort. It struggles anyway, and this is adding to the town's problems. Ventnor has all sorts of landslip problems, and I don't want to take responsibility for this." He maintains the wall was constructed as part of the original road infrastructure and predates the house, stating, "The wall was built by the authorities who built the road. The road came before the house. It's not owned by me. It can only be owned by the adjoining owner, which is the council. There needs to be a court hearing to determine who owns the wall. That's the nub of the issue." Mr. Burrows also cited land registry documents which he claims show the wall lies outside his property boundary. Both the council and Island Roads have previously stated that the collapse is that of a private wall and it is the responsibility of that private landowner to make the required repairs. A representative for Ringway Island Roads told the court the summons should be properly served to Colin Rowland, Strategic Director of Community Services at the Isle of Wight Council. Local councillor Ed Blake has responded to this latest development, stating, "This is a complete mess, and in the meantime, the only people feeling the ill effects are the rest of the residents and businesses of Ventnor, all of whom are innocent parties. The Isle of Wight Council needs to get the road open, stop the spiralling costs, and sort it out in the courts at a later date. What a situation we are in, where common sense is seemingly non-existent." The matter has now been adjourned to a future date, further delaying any potential resolution and the long-awaited reopening of Bath Road. Happy Easter, everybody.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Tony
and Lynn.
We begin with more news items that we've collected this week. Popular Isle of Wight attraction Robin Hill's UK first roller glider. Popular Isle of Wight attraction Robin Hill has unveiled major problems for its new Adrenaline Zone, featuring a roller glider tower thought to be the only one of its kind in the UK. The beloved adventure park, which opened under new ownership early this month, has put forward exciting proposals for the area of land next to the main entrance. Previously home to swinging boat Colossus, the cow train and a remote-controlled boating area, the newly named Adrenaline Zone seeks to replace tired, outdated attractions with newer, more fashionable features. Among the attractions planned are a series of themed 3D climbing walls and a 16-metre multi-level ropes course tower topped with a roller glider. As the only one of its kind in the UK, Robin Hill hopes the roller glider will put the island on the map and be a major pull for tourists. There are also plans to add a 3-tiered stunt bag, a cafeteria with a roof terrace and a water pillow for tots. Open all year round, the zone will be a separately ticketed area away from the main park. A spokesman for the adventure park said, "Our new owners are working hard to renew and refresh Robin Hill so that in addition to maintaining its country park heritage, it also delivers a modern customer experience which caters for all abilities and ages. Our new plans align with the island's overarching goals to support a prosperous rural economy and will ensure a high-quality visitor experience while appealing to new types of customers." Robin Hill, previously owned by Vectis Ventures, was purchased by Lee Priddle and John Smith last year. It reopened on April the 4th with no less than 16 attractions on offer and counting.
A missing Isle of Wight pony was found safe after hedge rescue. A missing pony has been safely found and reunited with his owner on the Isle of Wight following a coordinated volunteer search effort. Ben, a male pony with known health conditions, had been last seen by his owner yesterday evening in his field at Porchfield at his usual bedtime. When his owner discovered him missing from the field near Coleman's Lane early this morning, Monday, a search began at first light. Despite thorough efforts from the owner and friends who began searching at 6:30 a.m, there was no sign of Ben. As concern grew, the volunteer group Drone SAR for Lost Dogs Isle of Wight was called in to assist. The free-to-use service, known for reuniting lost dogs with their owners across the island, sent drone pilots to scour the surrounding countryside. Initial flights focused on areas further afield where it was believed Ben might have travelled, but these delivered no results. Later in the day, specialist search dog Dilly was brought in. Dilly led his handler directly to a dense hawthorn hedge not far from Ben's field, where he gave a freeze indication, a trained signal that the target had been located. Even with Dilly's precise alert, spotting Ben was not easy. The pony had become deeply entangled in the hedge around 12 metres in and was unable to free himself. Once located, Ben was carefully freed by the volunteer group and returned to his stable. He is said to be in a bit of shock, but otherwise doing well, now safely back with his owner.
Isle of Wight man's attack causes neighbour to break shoulder. A man inflicted serious injury by kicking a woman, causing her to fall and fracture her shoulder outside his flat. David Cottle of Spring Hill, Ventnor, admitted to grievous bodily harm without intent against the woman on October 4th, 2023. The 35-year-old appeared before Island magistrates on Friday, April the 11th. The woman had reacted to Cottle shouting by banging on his window and door. Cottle came outside and kicked her, causing her to fall and fracture her shoulder, the court heard. He then stood over the woman and shouted at her before going back inside. The incident was caught on CCTV and the woman ended up in hospital, said Liz Miller, prosecuting. Cottle, jailed for 2 months in 2020 for assault, changed his plea to guilty on the day of his trial on January the 8th. His solicitor, Oscar Vincent, said Cottle and the complainant continued to live in close proximity without any issues since the incident. He also stated Cottle had been dealing with the bereavement of a friend at the time of the offence and claimed to be a long-standing victim of bullying from neighbours. Mr. Vincent said the harassment he has received has impacted significantly on his mental health. Cottle has a record of 13 offences against the person. Magistrate sentenced him to 20 weeks in jail, suspended for 12 months, and ordered him to pay £650 in costs and a £154 surcharge.
Isle of Wight ferry firm Red Funnel records £195 million loss in 2023. The Isle of Wight ferry firm Red Funnel recorded a loss of nearly £200 million in 2023, the company's latest accounts show. According to Companies House, the cross-Solent operator saw a total comprehensive loss for the year of £195.92 million. Year on year, that is an 86% decline. In 2022, the company had a loss of £27.7 million. Accounts for Red Funnel Limited show the firm's 2023 earnings to be £11.6 million, a 22.2% fall on 2022, when £14.91 million was reported. Turnover was up 10.4%, however, from £55.33 million to £61.1 million. The publication of the accounts come after Red Funnel's parent company, Southampton, Isle of Wight and South of England Royal Mail Steam Packet Company, SIOW, also filed its figures earlier this month. Red Funnel boss Fran Collins has always vehemently denied rumours of administration and just last week stated the company was in a strong financial position. She previously said, "I am pleased to confirm that like the SIOW accounts, these have been filed on a going concern basis and that any rumours of administration are categorically incorrect." Red Funnel has also secured financial backing from the firm's lenders for at least the next 18 months, under the proviso that new investment is obtained by September 30th, 2025. If this milestone is not met, this could require a demand for repayment, for which the group would have insufficient cash or available finance, the accounts state. Red Funnel maintains it is confident it can secure investment, though, and is actively in discussions with several parties. A spokesperson for Red Funnel said, "The valuation of the business has been revised, reflecting today's realities. It is important to recognise that this process is standard accounting practice and does not involve any cash flow or affect our day-to-day operations. In recent years, we have navigated through numerous challenges, including the effects of COVID-19, fluctuating interest rates, the cost of living crisis and rising costs. We remain in a strong position with an increase in turnover of over 10%, and we are optimistic about the future. We are dedicated to continuing our efforts to serve the island for generations to come."
Isle of Wight dog walk ends in cliff rescue mission. The coastal walk took a dramatic turn last week when a man suffered a fall after being pulled off balance by his dog on the Isle of Wight. The incident happened at the bottom of a set of steps near one of the chines on the island's south coast. The man's energetic dog, named Mouse, tugged unexpectedly, causing him to lose his balance. As a result, The man suffered a head injury along with other serious concerns. Emergency services were called and the Needles Coast Guard rescue team was requested to assist the Isle of Wight ambulance service. Reaching the casualty proved challenging, with a rescue team facing a 45-minute trek from their vehicles to the scene. Once there, rescuers carefully secured the man in a basket stretcher and began the challenging task of bringing him to a safe location for hospital transfer. Despite the ordeal, the man remained conscious throughout and even shared a few laughs with the crew. Photos later shared by the team showed Mouse, the adorable culprit, happily back at home in the garden with his forgiving owner. A spokesman for the Coast Guard rescue team said, "Always take care when out and about near cliffs, coastal paths or unfamiliar steps, especially with dogs or children. In an emergency at the coast, dial 999 and ask for the Coast Guard. Stay safe and enjoy the coastline responsibly."
A runaway coach chaos at popular Isle of Wight seaside hotel. A hotel manager in an Isle of Wight seaside town believes a runaway coach in a car park would have killed him if he had been in the van it crushed. The incident at the Ocean View Hotel in Shanklin at 5:50 p.m. on Saturday left the hotel manager's van crushed, a receptionist's Ford Focus undrivable, and the hotel perimeter walls wrecked. The crash had crushed a Ford van belonging to Simon Willis, the hotel's manager. The force of it shunted the van about 8 foot through a wall and destroying the bin store roof. "It sounded like a crunching bang," Simon said. "I'm glad I wasn't sat in the van at the time. If I had, I wouldn't be here now. I'd have been killed. Look at what went through the windscreen. I'd have lost my head." The coach had just arrived with a party from Birmingham. Simon said the coach started to run downhill from the top of the car park, picking up speed, which quickly went out of control. There was no driver at the wheel. The Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service said it was caused by a handbrake failure. Simon said the driver was at the top near the coach and he saw it starting to move. Then he jumped in front of it, trying to stop it with his hands. When he realised he couldn't, he jumped out of the way. There was no way he was going to stop 20 to 30 tonnes of coach. The coach must have been travelling at least 20 miles an hour, and then bang. It was lucky as hell no one was killed. No injuries were sustained, said the police. The bin store was demolished. Debris caved into the bin store's courtyard, often used by staff, but not at the time of the incident. The runaway coach also swept a white Ford Focus sideways from its parking space into a wall, damaging the vehicle and a metal barrier. If the van hadn't been in the coach's path, it would have crashed further down the hill or into an adjoining flat, Simon stressed. Fire services stabilised the vehicle and evacuated a resident from a flat adjoining the hotel last night. The scene was cordoned off while emergency services assessed the situation, and the coach was recovered on Sunday morning.
Network Rail seeks consent for historic braiding footbridge works. A public body has sought approval for a handrail and lighting system on an historic Isle of Wight footbridge. Network Rail's part retrospective application seeks listed building consent (LBC) for a works scheme at the Grade 2 listed Braiding Railway Station footbridge on Station Road. A submitted planning and heritage statement says the project will improve accessibility and safety, lowering the risk of slips, trips and falls. Proposed handrails will be made out of zinc yellow with LED lighting fitted onto the bridge's staircases. Plans also include anti-climb LED lighting along the bridge's central section. Network Rail said, "It is considered that the proposed works are in accordance with both modern health and safety standards and national and local planning policy. Importantly, the works will not have an adverse effect on the Grade 2 listed structure. The public benefits of the works will outweigh any harm that may be caused to the historic value of this structure. To allow both the bridge to open to rail passengers and the removal of the temporary footbridge, a handrail and lighting system has already been installed on the footbridge. It should be noted, however, that the handrails currently installed are not in accordance with the plans submitted as part of this application. The difference being that the handrail supporting posts at the bottom of the staircase are to be moved closer to the concrete pad, subject to obtaining LBC. The Council's public consultation on the application ends on May the 19th, and the decision is expected on June the 9th.
An Isle of Wight man, 23, admits homophobic slur and spat at PC. A man has admitted spitting at a police officer and using a homophobic slur to a stranger concerned for his welfare. Daniel Hardy admitted using threatening, abusive and insulting words and behaviour in Newport on September 19th last year. The 23-year-old also admitted to assaulting a police officer by beating during the early hours of September the 20th and assaulting a woman by beating in Cowes on October the 14th. Hardy of Honey Hill, Newport, appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday, April the 11th. Liz Miller, prosecuting, said staff at the Hog's Head pub in Newport flagged down police, telling them Hardy was causing trouble. An officer heard Hardy call a man, unknown to him, a homophobic slur. Hardy tried to walk away from the officer, kicking a shop window in the process, but was arrested. While being kept in a police van due to a queue being booked into custody at Newport Police Station, Hardy started banging his head on the door. Made to sit down, he spat at the officer, with his spittle landing on his thigh. For Hardy, Oscar Vincent said his client had been out with a friend and was heavily intoxicated, which led to him vomiting. While he was being sick, he made the homophobic comment to a man who was checking on his welfare. Mr. Vincent said the words were used in a jocular manner, believing it was a friend, rather than them being used to cause upset. While feeling nauseous, he spat, but it unintentionally struck the officer. Regarding the October 14th incident, Hardy was reportedly having a row with his girlfriend in Cowes. The police found them in a bus shelter in Terminus Road. Hardy told the officers they'd had an argument, which led to him pushing her into a hedge. The woman was not injured. Police initially gave Hardy a conditional caution, but he failed to attend a course and was subsequently charged with assault. In mitigation, Mr. Vincent explained Hardy had a mental health crisis. Hardy will be sentenced on June the 3rd.
Village Harbour to get new 19.7 metre houseboat despite neighbour concerns. An Isle of Wight village's harbour will get a new 19.7 metre houseboat with 27 rooftop solar panels despite opposition from a neighbour. The council approved Peter Mickelson's proposal to assemble Avocet 3 in Bembridge Harbour next to Embankment Road. His plans also include the prior installation of a supporting steel frame and 4 associated mooring poles. The new residential vessel will replace a houseboat which sank at the site in August 2022. An inspection carried out after the sinking of the Pretender revealed notable rotting, according to a statement prepared by Lodging Planning on behalf of Mr. Mickelson. The removal of the Pretender was completed in October 2023 following the granting of a Marine Management Organisation licence. County Hall planners said The proposed development has been supported by all the necessary reports to demonstrate that the work can be carried out without adverse impact on the protected areas and would be safe from flooding and future adverse impacts. The design of the development is considered to be acceptable in its context within the Bembridge Conservation Area and in terms of impacts on neighbouring amenity. The council received one letter of objection from David Beeding, who lives on the houseboat Harbourside View. He said the size of the proposed structure is excessive and larger than other houseboats in the area, extended further into the harbour and obstructing view from the roadside. Unlike Pretender, that was visually more appealing and didn't have the width of the new houseboat, therefore offering greater views across the harbour.
Tributes flood in following the passing of an inspirational island teenager, Arlo Lambie. The family of a beloved Isle of Wight teenager who made a huge impact on the local community and beyond have paid tribute to him following his passing on Monday. Arlo Lambie was diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumour in October 2024, having suffered multiple migraines beforehand. The statement released by Arlo's family said, "Arlo, our beautiful son, brother, grandson, cousin, nephew, friend and companion, died peacefully under the pink moon and surrounded by the love of family and friends. Arlo held deep appreciation for the wonder and abundance of life, and to the end he shared it with generosity, love, grace, lightness, humour and open compassion. Thank you all again for your incredible support and understanding through this journey. We look forward to celebrating Arlo and this amazing community with you all soon." Funds raised in Arlo's name will be used to support causes close to his heart. Wishing you all love and peace. A Just Giving page has so far raised more than £109,000 for those charities, with islanders donating en masse after hearing Arlo's story. Arlo was the inspiration for Wear What Makes You Happy Mufti Day in February, with more than 80 local schools, preschools and businesses taking part. His friend Taylor said at the time, "Arlo is the nicest guy. He deserves our help. I hope this day fills him with a smile." One of many tributes shared by others on social media said, "Rest easy, Arlo. You've touched so many lives with your inspirational tenacity and love for life." A fast food takeaway outlet to be converted into a convenience store. A fast food takeaway outlet in the heart of the Isle of Wight's county town will be converted into a convenience store. Planners accepted Mrs. M. Immaculata's change of use application to convert Fry Nation at 84 to 85 High Street into a family shopper, a retail outlet part of the Tesco Group. The store will serve the large residential estate to the west side of Newport, a submitted design and access statement said. A planning statement included in the application said the proposal is to convert the existing fast food outlet into a convenience store to serve the surrounding area, including the High Street. This proposal will increase economic activity for the benefit of the island. The convenience store will offer a wide range of products as indicated with the diagrammatic plan layout attached to this application. This proposal will lead to an increase in retail employment by this new investment into the site and will be to the benefit of the local community. Newport High Street already has other convenience stores, including Central and Tesco Express, as well as Poundland. The council has not yet published a report justifying the decision.
Isle of Wight hockey star named in Hockey for Heroes National Fundraising Squad. A Ryde School hockey coach has successfully gained a place on the Hockey for Heroes squad for 2025. Shanklian-based Pip Spilby and her teammates will be touring the country from the 23rd to the 31st of May, completing grueling daily fitness races to cover 2,029,201 metres, one for every veteran living in the UK today. These challenges will take place alongside a season's worth of hockey matches, 54 of them, in just 9 days. Mission Peace Finder is hoping to raise awareness and vital funds to support Help the Heroes in their services to deliver life-changing support to help rebuild service personnel's lives and continue to act as a beacon of hope for veterans. Pip said, "I am very excited to be part of the challenge, and with a little over a month to go, training is ramping up. Juggling being a mom to twin boys, training and encouraging hockey players on the island to be the best they can is a challenge. I'm confident it can be done."
Dissatisfaction with island health and social care services continues to climb. There are mounting concerns around the quality of care in Isle of Wight residential homes, a health watchdog has said. In its intelligence report for February 13th to March 12th, Health Watch Isle of Wight also drew attention to a lack of speciality consultants, leading to delays in treatment and a lack of access to NHS dentistry as key issues facing islanders. Its findings show dissatisfaction with island health and social care services is continuing to climb. Overall feedback gathered was 57% negative, 162 submissions, and 4% mixed or neutral, 4, and 39% positive, 113. The combined total of bad feedback has risen by 5 percentage points since Health Watch's January to February report, with positive responses falling by 6 points. In relation to residential care, Health Watch heard people waiting are too long when they want to go to the toilet and then having accidents which are distressing for the client, not enough activities and only the more able clients chosen for these and nothing for the less able. The most common topics, GP services and dentistry, received over 40 and over 20 negative pieces of feedback respectively. One GP user told the watchdog, "I didn't feel heard or helped. A very scary experience resulted in a text to say book a phone call, appointment online, next one was 3 weeks away. This left me with the problem and no sense of how bad it is." Another resident spoke of being on the NHS dental waiting list for 4 years, not being able to afford private dental treatment.
2 unsafe and unsightly braiding houses could be demolished following a catastrophic fire. 2 unsafe and unsightly houses on the main Isle of Wight road could be demolished following a fatal fire. Joan Still applied to the council for permission to demolish 2 significantly fire-damaged buildings, 54 and 56 New Road in Brading, and build a replacement property. On December the 1st, 2023, a fire started at number 56, which went on to completely destroy before spreading next door. According to the Andrew White Planning Consultancy, the blaze resulted in the death of 60-year-old John Kent, the owner of number 56. Ms. Still's proposed 2-storey house would be a redevelopment of number 54, which she owns part of. It will comprise a kitchen, dining room, lounge, hallway, utility room, 2 WCs, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. This application will see the demolition of the buildings, which will be an immediate improvement to the visual amenities of the area, the consultancy said. The future development of the neighbouring site, number 56, remains uncertain as the elderly owner tragically died in the fire and the property was not insured. However, it is necessary to demolish the entire pair for safety reasons and to enable the redevelopment of number 54. The development proposed is able to demonstrate a design which is completely compatible with the character and appearance of its surroundings, visually attractive, and has no adverse impacts on the amenities of the neighbouring residential uses or highway considerations. County Hall's public consultation on the application ends on May the 13th and a decision is expected on June the 3rd.
Gurnard chalets could be demolished on picturesque island. Seafront, 2 seaside chalets in an Isle of Wight village could be demolished, paving the way for one new 2-bedroom house. Mr and Mrs Huxford lodged a planning application to demolish 15 and 16 Marsh Road in Gurnard, number 15 being in a very poor state of repair, according to a submitted planning statement. The Huxfords' proposal includes the construction of a new home classed as market housing at the application site looking onto the Solent. Plans show the building raised 1.3 metres above the ground with supporting columns, would have 2 bedrooms, a bathroom and a kitchen living area. It would also comprise a small decked area and 2 existing parking spaces. There has been a significant change in the style and type of properties that have been built along Marsh Road, and this proposal continues the pattern of redevelopment, the planning statement notes. The open rear north grassed aspect will be retained, and the design and materials used will sit comfortably with the new emerging street scene and its coastal setting. County Hall's public consultation on the application finishes on May the 7th, and a decision is due on May the 27th.
91.5% of Isle of Wight parents secure first choice of primary school for their children. The allocation of Isle of Wight primary school places has been announced on Wednesday the 16th of April 2025, with hundreds of children across the island finding out which primary school they'll be attending from September. This year, 97.6% of island parents will have gained a school of choice for their children, with 91.5% of applications achieving a place at their first choice school. Every child for which an application was submitted to the council received a school place. The number of applications in 2025 were 998, 1,024 last year. The percentage of applications achieving first choice, 91.5%, 96.9% last year. The percentage achieving second choice, 5.1%, 2.3% last year. The percentage achieving third choice, 1%, 0.1% last year. The figures above include all applications that were received on time and those children with an education and healthcare plan, but not those who applied late. Ashley Whitaker, Strategic Director of Children's Services, said, "We are pleased the majority of children have gained a place at one of their preferred schools, with most getting their first choice and all children being offered a place. Those children starting their primary education will be embarking on a new journey as they settle in and make new friends. It will be an exciting time as we develop and improve education across the island."
Isle of Wight man of 35 degraded a woman by pulling her top down. A man pulled down a woman's top and exposed her breasts in Newport Town Centre. Daniel Shaw of Cuspo Close, Hereford, was found to have sexually assaulted the woman on July the 22nd, 2023. The 35-year-old window fitter appeared for sentencing at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday, April the 11th. His trial was held on January the 16th, having denied the charge on July the 13th last year. The assault victim had been socialising in the Hogshead pub on High Street. She was heading to Kenny's takeaway in the town centre with a friend when Shaw, who was standing close by, made a comment about the conversation the two women were having. Shaw, who had been drinking that night, then put his arm around the victim and pulled her top down to expose her breasts. Prosecutor Liz Miller said the victim was left shocked. Her friend, equally shocked, witnessed this incident. Representing Shaw, Holly Fagan said her client had no previous convictions for sexual assault and had been under the influence of alcohol. She said he doesn't drink at all now, knowing that when he's sober he makes better decisions. The father of 3 is diagnosed with psychotic schizophrenia. Before sentencing, presiding magistrate David Wilson told Shaw the offence was degrading to the victim. It was totally unacceptable, something no one should have to go through on a night out. Shaw was sentenced to 12 months probation, which includes 20 rehabilitation sessions. He was also fined £2,000, ordered to pay £400 costs and an £114 surcharge. Shaw was also told he would have to sign the sex offenders register for 5 years.
East White MP secures appointment to Shadow Transport Team. Joe Robertson MP has been appointed as a Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Shadow Transport Team, which is led by Gareth Bacon MP, Shadow Secretary of State for Transport. This appointment makes Mr Robertson the first of the new 2024 intake of Conservative MPs to be given additional shadow duties, which he will fulfil alongside his existing position in the Shadow Culture, Media and Sport team, and his role on the cross-party Health and Social Care Select Committee. Part of this new role will see Mr Robertson closely involved in the Conservatives' National Transport Policy Commission, announced recently by Kemi Badenoch MP, the leader of Her Majesty's opposition. This commission will help formulate the Conservative policy positions ahead of the next general election and will allow Joe an opportunity to argue for more measures to improve ferry services to the island. Joe has said, "I am pleased to have been appointed to the Shadow Transport Team and look forward to helping formulate the Conservative Party's approach to transport in the next election. Considering the significant problems we have with ferries on the island, transport is one of the most important local issues, and I will be working with my colleagues on policy to get cross-Solent transport taken into the fold of national regulation like trains, buses and Scottish ferries. I remain cautiously optimistic that the current government will intervene on cross-Solent transport. It is untenable for them to nationalise the trains and give local authorities control over the buses while leaving Isle of Wight ferries as the only privatised, foreign-owned, unregulated and unsubsidised lifeline transport route in the country."
Plans to build 8 houses on land owned by an Isle of Wight engineering firm are back on the table. Members of the public have until May the 7th to put forward their views on Mr S. Bennett of Evergreen Holdings Limited application for 8 new houses at Clark Masts Texham Limited off Ringwood Road in Binstead. Evergreen Holdings, which owns Clark Masts Texham, submitted revised plans which also include the demolition of part of the on-site factory, a new detached factory building and related parking and landscaping. The proposed homes are classed as market housing according to Evergreen's application form. Property specialists BCM Wilson Hill said the proposal will deliver a high-quality standard of design with continuing local employment opportunities. Its submitted statement said The housing types are 2-bedroom units which meets island needs and can provide dwellings for couples and families. The new factory building will provide modern facilities for the existing company to relocate into. The position, scale and mass of the proposed dwellings and factory will not harm any existing or future residents' amenity in terms of privacy, outlook or disturbance. In submissions this week, Island Roads and the Environment Agency said they had no objections to the plans. Island Roads did, however, recommend conditions be imposed for highway safety. The Council is due to make a decision on June the 15th.
Over 30,000 islanders eligible to vote in the 1st of May elections. Over 30,000 islanders have the opportunity to vote in 16 town and parish elections and 3 Isle of Wight council by-elections on Thursday the 1st of May. That's more than 1 in 5 islanders. In Godshill, voters will be handed 2 ballot papers, one for their parish council election and another because the village is within the boundary of the Central Rural Electoral Division, where one of 3 Isle of Wight council elections take place. Now a list. By-elections. The 3 Isle of Wight County Council by-elections are Central Rural, Freshwater South and Lake North. Town and parish elections, where elections are being held: Brading Town Council, Calbourne, Newtown and Porchfield Parish Council, that's Calbourne Ward, Calbourne, Newtown and Porchfield Parish Council, Porchfield Ward, Cowes Town Council, Cowes South Ward, East Cowes Town Council, Osborne Ward, Godshill Parish Council, Ryde Town Council, Ryde North East Ward, Ryde Town Council, Ryde South East Ward, Ryde Town Council, Ryde West Ward, Sandown Town Council, Sandown North Ward, Sandown Town Council, Sandown South Ward, Shalfleet Parish Council, Shalfleet East Ward, Shalfleet Parish Council, Shalfleet West Ward, Shanklin Town Council, Shanklin Central Ward, Yarmouth Town Council, Thorley Ward, Yarmouth Town Council, Yarmouth Ward. In other town, parish and community council wards across the island, the number of candidates did not exceed the number of vacancies, so no elections will take place. The elections involve 7 town councils and 3 parish councils. There are no elections taking place in Newport and Carisbrooke, the island's only community council. The smallest ward in terms of the number of voters where there is an election is Thorley Ward at Yarmouth Town Council, where 219 voters go to the polls to choose from 4 candidates who are seeking to fill 2 vacancies. At the other end of the scale, there are 3,208 voters in Osborne Ward, East Cowes Towns Council, where 5 candidates are contesting 4 vacancies. Brading Town, Shanklin Central Ward of Shanklin Town Council and Yarmouth Ward of Yarmouth Town Council share the distinction of having the highest number of candidates in these elections. In each case, 9 names will appear on the ballot paper. 24 polling stations will be used across the 19 elections. Voter ID is required in these elections. Those without approved photo ID, such as passport or driving licence, can apply for free voter ID known as a Voter Authority Certificate, and the deadline to apply is Wednesday, the 23rd of April at 5 o'clock at night. Further information, together with links to the various forms for voters, can be found on the Isle of Wight Council by-elections 2025 page and the Town, Parish and Community Council elections. Polling stations for all these elections will be open from 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night.
An appeal over the refused much-needed East Cowes farm barns. A refused bid to build 2 new much-needed farm barns covering hundreds of square metres near an Isle of Wight town has been appealed. Applicant Allard lodged an appeal over the council's refusal of an agricultural prior notification, an APN, to build 2 additional barns at Woodhouse Farm near East Cowes, which is accessed via private roadways. Planners previously said the buildings were not reasonably necessary for agriculture and that one of the barns would be harmful to the surrounding landscape. Allard says the plans are an operational farming decision, however, relating to existing and planned business growth. The first of the proposed barns is an extension to an existing barn for housing livestock, access purposes and storing hay. The second, standalone field barn, would be used to house feed. Allard's appeal statement says, the appellant takes issue with the local planning authorities, LPA, view that the barns are not reasonably necessary and considers this an operational farming decision having regard to existing and planned business growth. The case officer did not seem to accept there was an agricultural and operational need due to the number of other buildings on the site. To rebut this assertion, the appellant has itemised the other barns and buildings and confirmed why they are not suitable or available for this use. The document goes on to note issues with existing barns at the site, including leakages, some of the buildings not meeting red tractor standards, the presence of asbestos in one of the barns, and another housing bulls. County Hall's decision report said, given the scale of existing and approved farm buildings at Woodhouse Farm and the scale of the farming operation, the LPA is not convinced that the new buildings are reasonably necessary for agriculture at Woodhouse Farm. The application for the field barn would be harmful to the surrounding landscape by virtue of its scale and siting.
And now we continue with White Memories. The days of power cuts and good old-fashioned entertainment. How would the youngsters of today coped with the blackouts of the 1970s or the war? After recalling my memories of wonderful snowy winters during my childhood, it got me thinking about some of the more dramatic moments when we were plunged into darkness without warning, with only gas lamps and candles for light and the wood fire for heat. I'm thinking in particular of the early 1970s when I was a child and we encountered power cuts which meant we would be sitting engrossed in the Flintstones on the black and white TV 1 minute and then reaching for the candles the next. At that time we were in the midst of an international oil crisis which led to industrial action by coal miners and other public sector workers in the UK. Electricity was rationed and much of the country's industry had to operate under a 3-day week. As kids, we didn't understand why it was happening, but it was both annoying and exciting in equal measure. Power cuts were only irksome for us if they occurred during an episode of The Persuaders or Hawaii 5-0, when an audible groan of disgust would emanate from the darkness. As the power usually went off after dark, there was always a moment of mayhem while Mom grappled with the contents of the cupboard under the kitchen sink to find candles. There was a bit of low-key cursing when Dad discovered the batteries in every torch were dead. But once the candles were lit, apart from the obvious worry of the house going up in flames, it was quite thrilling for us. The only part I didn't much enjoy was getting to the loo upstairs while holding a candle, nor the slightly eerie flickering shadows it cast. My favourite thing was the fact that my dad had to cook tea on a gas bottle stove in the garage. Mom barred him from the kitchen as one of his favourite blackout foods to cook was sprats, little fish with the heads left on, doused in a bit of flour and fried in a pan. They spat mercilessly as they hit the hot oil, and many exploded, leaving a fishy odour for weeks. On reflection, I can see why Mom didn't want him doing that in the kitchen, especially in the dark. When the electric went off, it actually brought us all together in one room where we had a single paraffin lamp and a multitude of candles. We would put the battery-operated radio on with some music and then play cards. A game called Draw the Well Dry was a favourite, as it was a good old game of drafts. Nobody ever let me win, no matter how hard the circumstances.
Sometimes we would tell each other ghost stories which made us laugh until it was time to brave the loo in the dark again. Dad would show us how to make shadow puppet animal shapes with his hands. Now I think back, it was actually really good fun. By contrast, I'm not sure how today's youngsters would survive a prolonged power cut, now that much of their entertainment comes via the internet. If the Wi-Fi goes down for longer than 10 minutes, it's akin to being marooned on a virtual desert island. Having to play cards or board games instead would seem like a return to the Dark Ages. No pun intended. Almost every gadget we have in our homes now is powered by electricity. At least in the olden days, as my nephew calls them, we still had our landline telephones, so my mum could call all her friends to check whether their power was off too. In my mum's day, when she experienced blackouts of a different kind during her childhood, there wasn't a reliance on electricity. Mum was a child in the 1940s, so encountered the wartime blackouts, when people had to turn off lights and cover windows to stop properties being visible to enemy aircraft. She said it wasn't as bad for us living in a country village, but I can still remember my mum putting a blanket up at the window at night. We would sometimes go outside and you could see the searchlights in the sky and hear the doodlebugs go over, presumably towards London. Occasionally we would have to get in the cupboard under the stairs, which I really didn't like. I also didn't like going to bed without my little oil lamp because I hated the dark. These days, thankfully, the electricity doesn't go off due to strike action, nor for bombing raids. But we are seeing a lot more frequent power outages due to adverse weather impacting on the country's ageing infrastructure. And although many of us have phones nowadays with lights on them, some habits die hard. So I still keep a box of matches and a candle or two in the cupboard under the sink, just in case. Do you recall the power cuts of the 70s or the wartime blackouts? Write to me, Emma Brennan, with your memories at ebrennanhere@gmail.com. And Emma Brennan is an award-winning journalist and former newspaper editor with a fondness for yesteryear.
We now move on to public information. Pharmacy opening hours confirmed for the Easter Bank holiday weekend. Residents across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight are being reminded to check local pharmacy opening times ahead of the Easter Bank holiday weekend, as many pharmacies will have different opening hours. The NHS has published the opening hours of pharmacies across the region to help people plan ahead of the long weekend. To view pharmacy opening hours, it's necessary to go online. Pharmacies play a vital role in providing expert health advice, prescriptions and over-the-counter medication. With National Health Services anticipating being busy over the Easter weekend, it's especially important to know when and where you can access a pharmacy if you need it. Neil Hardy, Chief Pharmacist at NHS Hampshire and Isle of Wight, says, "We encourage everyone to check the opening hours of their local pharmacies and to collect any repeat prescriptions in advance to avoid running out of essential medication over the bank holiday. Pharmacists are highly trained healthcare professionals who can offer expert advice on minor ailments and provide over-the-counter treatment without the need for a GP appointment. They are often the most convenient, timely option for a wide range of everyday problems. If you run out of prescribed medication, you can request an emergency prescription online via 111.nhs.uk. Alternatively, contact your local community pharmacy team for advice. Your NHS are here for you this Easter. Choose the right service. Healthier together. Download the app to find a range of health advice on many common conditions. Pharmacies offer a fast and convenient way to get expert health advice on both over-the-counter and prescription medication without the need for an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, the information is available online under the heading Find a Pharmacy NHS. Urgent treatment centres can help with injuries and illnesses that need urgent medical attention but aren't life-threatening. Waiting times can also be shorter than at emergency departments. We have urgent treatment centres in Andover, Gosport, Lymington, Petersfield, Portsmouth, Southampton and on the Isle of Wight. Shout text service, mental health support service. Text SHOUT to the number 85258 or visit the Shout website for more information. Emergency departments. If you or someone you know is experiencing a medical emergency, you should call 999 or visit the nearest emergency department.
An Ireland MP has said no frontline roles will be cut at St Mary's Hospital after meeting with unions and the Isle of Wight NHS Trust. Richard Quigley, Labour MP for Isle of Wight West, spoke out following news that around 10% of the whole-time equivalent WTE jobs within the Trust are at risk as part of cost improvement plans. The healthcare provider said workforce reduction was a key aspect of its operating plan for 25-26 in its March board papers. A total of 249 roles have been selected for cutbacks out of 2,470 WTE roles across substantive, bank and agency staff groups at St Mary's Hospital, equivalent to a saving of £10.8 million. Mr Quigley told the press, "I spoke to Unison and the Trust last week. No job losses are confirmed. Should any be made, it will be back office functions, removing duplication. No frontline roles will be cut." The reorganisation of the NHS is focused on improving care and outcomes and removing bureaucracy that slow the system down. Our focus is reducing waiting times and improving health. I'll keep in close contact with Unison and the Trust as more information becomes available. His comments following follow Unison's warning last week that losing vital health worker roles will simply place more strain on services already creaking at the seams. The Public Sector Union's South East Regional Organiser, James Smith, said, "The pressure on the NHS is unsustainable. Tackling the growing demand and ensuring patients get the timely care they deserve won't be achieved by cutting jobs. What's certain is that losing vital health worker roles will simply place more strain on services already creaking at the seams and will cost more in the long run." The Isle of Wight NHS Trust previously said that while it understands these decisions are difficult, it needs to go further than it did last year to achieve the significant financial savings required of us. Job fears come after the government announced plans to abolish NHS England. Secretary of State for Health and Social Care Wes Streeting told the House of Commons last month, "Today the NHS delivers worse care for patients, but is more expensive than ever before. The budget for NHS England staff and admin alone has soared to £2 billion. Taxpayers are paying more but getting less. We have been left with two large organisations doing the same roles, with an enormous amount of duplication. It is especially in times like these, when money is tight, that such bloated and inefficient bureaucracy cannot be justified." PS Waverley is to return to the Isle of Wight this September. The world's last sea-going paddle steamer, PS Waverley, is set to make a much-anticipated return to the Isle of Wight this September. The historic vessel provides passengers with a unique opportunity to experience maritime heritage firsthand, offering a series of nostalgic cruises around the island and along the south coast. Waverley's visits to the south coast and the Isle of Wight have become a treasured annual tradition since her first arrival at Newhaven almost 47 years ago on the 17th of April 1978. Her return this September will mark another chapter in a long and valued history of offering excursions in the region. This year's programme follows a disrupted 2024 season when the Waverley had to be towed back to Portsmouth after suffering damage to one of its paddles. Furthermore, the Waverley was unable to dock at Yarmouth or Ryde Piers last year. In September, the Waverley will operate several cruises that include stops in both Ryde and Yarmouth. It's always a pleasure to bring Waverley back to the south coast and Isle of Wight, as she receives such a warm welcome year after year. This year's timetable includes more variety than ever, from round the island cruises and sunset sailings to steam train connections on the Isle of Wight Steam Railway and Swanage Railway. One highlight I'm looking forward to is our special sailing to mark the 70th anniversary of Steamship Shield Hall on Saturday the 13th of September, as it will be a truly unique moment to see two historic Clyde-built steamships meeting once again. There's no better way to take in the stunning scenery of the Dorset, Hampshire and Isle of Wight coastlines than from the decks of Waverley, and I look forward to welcoming passengers aboard. Tickets for the Waverley's September cruises are available for purchase online. Early booking is recommended, as these popular excursions often sell out quickly. For more details and to secure your place aboard this iconic vessel, visit www.waverleyexcursions.co.uk.
With a wish for a very nice Easter weekend to all our listeners, this is Goodbye from Tony.
And goodbye from Lynn.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the Scaffolding News follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. It seems that the RNIB, the UK's largest and best-known organisation serving blind and partially sighted people, is at something of a crossroads. On the one hand, it's recently published a 10-year strategy with hugely ambitious targets to improve the lives of visually impaired people and improve the nation's eye health. On the other, they've also just completed a 45-day consultation with their staff which we know will involve the loss of many jobs, including those of some blind staff, and the cutting, in some cases scrapping, of some much cherished services. Part of the background to this, discussed on this programme with the RNIB CEO 9 months ago, was an estimated £10 million funding gap that had to be filled. The CEO, Matt Stringer, now joins us again with the consultation just completed. Matt Stringer, that circle, hugely ambitious aims and a need to cut jobs and services, sounds like a pretty difficult one to square. How can it be done?
Well, I think we are doing it, Peter. I mean, first of all, as you said, we've got an ambitious vision in which the UK works equitably for blind and partially sighted people, and a strong RNIB, you call us a leading charity in the sector, is clearly critically important to help make that happen. And the programme we've just gone through, and I'm sure we'll come and talk about it a bit more now, I think has a number of aims which I think we've been able to achieve. Building an organisation that is better able to support blind and partially sighted people into the future. And I think also crucially setting us up to absorb, the headwinds from a very challenging world and critically put us on a sustainable financial footing.
But you do have to lose jobs. Can we talk about those first? Because it's about people, visually impaired people. I mean, how many redundancies have you had to make?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're incredibly sorry for any colleagues, sighted or visually impaired, who have had to leave the organisation. In total, we will lose 190 colleagues. And of those 190 colleagues, 24 visually impaired colleagues will leave the organisation. 8 of those took voluntary redundancy, actually, and the other 16, I'm afraid we had to make compulsory redundant. We've done as much as we can to try and support that process with a lot of outplacement support, support around equipment, and extending the use of accessible software for a period after they've left the organisation.
Isn't it very embarrassing, not to mention damaging to the organisation's reputation, to have to get rid of the very people you're urging other employers to take on, people who you're assuring them, quite rightly, are valuable and resourceful workers?
I don't think it's embarrassing. I think it's tough and hard. I get that for everybody involved. I think I'd point to our work on employment outside the RNIB. Critically, we're trying to get the UK to work better for blind and partially sighted people. And last year, we helped over 1,000 people retain their jobs. We actually helped just short of 500 people into work. And actually, we're trying to help ourselves by developing internal visually impaired talent. We just put in place a lived experience leadership programme with our good friends at Guide Dogs and Thomas Pocklington Trust, exactly to sort of train up talented visually impaired colleagues in the sector.
So, but Matt, we know
a lot. I think we've got a good track record.
We know a lot of employers, an alarming amount, are saying we're not going to make adaptations and we can't make adaptations to employ visually impaired people. If they see the RNIB isn't able to employ that quota of visually impaired people, they're going to say, well, if they won't, why should we?
Well, Peter, I get the contradiction that you're raising in your question. As I say, we're very sorry anyone's had to leave the organisation, including those 24 visually impaired colleagues. I think we've signed up 37 new employers to our Visibly Better Employer Standards last year, which is the programme that helps them sort of recruit, induct and support and sustain blind and partially sighted people in work. I think we've got a strong track record there, which people see as being very robust and credible at the moment.
Quite a lot of these people have very specific skills related to the very fact that they are blind or partially sighted. Some have been with you for many years and are nearing the end of their working lives. I mean, I've heard the words brutal, uncaring mentioned in the context of these redundancies. I know you won't agree with that, but that's how it's being seen by some of the people in the organisation that we've talked to.
We have run this programme over 9 months. We've been very engaged with the unions to make sure the programme is absolutely legal, fair, watertight. All along the way, we've run monthly all-hands communication sessions where we've been very open about the programme progress. And at the end, we ran a 45-day consultation where we had 50 counter proposals and we accepted 21 of those, which put 10 roles back in and made a variety of changes to processes and structures. So I think we set out and I think we did deliver a programme which allowed input and was as considerate as we could be in the circumstance.
Can we come to a proposed cut, which has, I know you know, caused a considerable upset in the blind community and which has now been postponed for a year. That's the proposed scrapping of the Braille transcription service. Now, this came at a time when the RNIB has been marking, indeed celebrating, the 200th anniversary of the invention of Braille. So the question now is, why was it even considered?
We do understand this is a vitally important service for the users, and we've had a lot of, as you just indicated, Peter, sort of very sort of impassioned feedback last week, which we've listened to. We couldn't really sustain the operation ourselves, honestly, and to move it to another provider, and we will stand behind that for the next 12 months, and actually working with people to put in place a solution that will endure beyond the year. And I think what we're keen to do in that process is get society to stand behind its obligations to produce information, which at the moment the RNIB is doing, when other organisations should do that. But it's been a bit of a misstep, Peter, I get it, and we've corrected that, and we will make sure that we run a very considered and consultative process now with all the users that came forwards in the last few weeks.
But it does raise a concerning issue. I mean, I said there was a lot of opposition to this. One of its users, Connor Scott Gardner, put out an open letter on this. I'd like you to hear specifically what they said about the issue of the numbers affected, 500, as compared to those who used the large print transcription service, which was scheduled to continue.
The RNIB is here to support blind people. Some of those blind people are totally blind to very limited amounts of vision and will be Braille readers. When I had a friend who the other day said he feels, and I agree with him, like congenitally blind people are being really pushed to the side. We can talk numbers all day, but if they are going to be the Royal National Institute of Blind People, they need to support blind people and not say, oh, well, you're actually too expensive. You cost too much money, so we'll only support the blind people that cost us less money. And then I think there's a broader question of actually, well, if they're not going to provide services that blind people need, what function do they serve? Or are they only serving a very narrow demographic? And in which case, then they have no right to speak for us when it's convenient for them.
I mean, that is the issue I wanted you to address, which is this feeling that perhaps congenitally blind people, are losing some of those very specialised services, the very services the RNIB was set up to provide.
Yeah, well, we were set up in 1868, for the improvement of embossed literature of the blind. And I think, we stand behind that position. It's been in our DNA for 150 years. On the personal transcription side, in the last 4 months, we've had 507 commissions. Actually, about 60% of that is large format. As I say, it's been a bit of a misstep from the RNIB. We will correct that and we will stand behind it. But I think there's a critical point here. And first of all, we do offer a breadth and depth of Braille provision, which is unrivaled. And I think, that needs to be acknowledged, and that hasn't changed. That's not going away anywhere. And if anything, we've seen with the changes we've made over the last few years, more users use those services.
But the transcription service has only been postponed. Will it quietly disappear in a year's time when the heat's off?
No, Peter, I don't think so, honestly. I mean, I'm here, I'm heavily involved in this. I think we'll fix this in the next few months, frankly. It's a very live issue now. We're not going to kick it in the long grass. We've got a great provider, which I think many of the people who fed back to us over the weekend and last week use themselves anyway. So that's a credible, very credible source of production, frankly, more credible than our operation would have been going into the future. But ultimately, there will be, I'm sure, an element the RNIB has to stand behind, from the end of the year, and that will be something that we will do.
Let's talk about some of the changes that are going to be introduced, which people will notice. There's talk of a one-stop shop when people call in for help or advice. What's the idea behind that? Because some jobs have gone in your customer-facing services. I'm wondering how people are going to get quicker advice with less people to filter out calls and give it.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, we'll still have about 500 people working in our service team going forward, which is about half the numbers in the RNIB. So it's still a massive part of our operation. I think what we've been seeing is we've had pockets of our teams who've had a particular specialism, and actually we haven't really dealt with things efficiently in managing the ebb and flow of requests coming in. What we're trying to do is have a much better sort of initial sort of layer of support and service from the first point of contact into the RNIB. If I give you an example, our Tech for Life service, which we've called Digital Skills now, we've had 2,500 customers contact that service in the last 6 months since we've been live. So this is a real life sort of example. And of those, only 93 sort of contacts did we have to take that issue back into the organisation to be addressed and worked on, to come back to the customer. If you look at the previous 6 months, we had to take 700 of those queries back into the organisation, and therefore the service wasn't that efficient.
You mentioned the Technology for Life scheme. The worry that some people had, and I talked to some people about this, was that, again, you lost some visually impaired people at that point. And the worry is that the idea that you've got now will mean you've had to train up people when you already had people doing this kind of job. This is a very specialised area, and the worry is the advice will be from people who perhaps don't fully understand that specialisation.
Yeah, we're not going to be doing that. I mean, we've got areas of speciality, things like tax and welfare. We've mentioned technology. We're absolutely retaining the core skills in those teams, honestly, and trying to upskill others to be broader in their knowledge. So
you have had to upskill people to do jobs that skillful people were already doing.
No, I think we're just adding to it. We're creating a greater layer of service because, we're getting more people able to deal with more of the queries.
Much of the new emphasis from your strategy seems to be on changing attitudes to blindness through advocacy. The trouble with that, surely, is that success is very hard to measure and often very slow in coming. Don't visually impaired people need services rather than a constant attempt to persuade other people to provide the services that you should be providing, or asking them to behave better?
Well, I think it's both, Peter, isn't it? I think the organisation at the moment is able to do that. Part of the reason why we've gone through this programme is to, set us up to be able to carry on over the medium term, be able to spin both those plates. Some of those areas in which we would campaign aren't things that we would offer the service. For example, the ticket office closure campaign, we won Civil Society's Campaign of the Year for the work we did there. We do think we can move the dial on things like eye care, on travel and transport, on employment, on education, because if the RNIB isn't campaigning on those things, then who is?
But I want to give you some example of those. There's some of those ambitions and goals in your future strategy. I quote, "To ensure every person with sight loss can live the life they want to lead without limits. We need everybody to care about and prioritise eye health. Everyone with sight loss can make spontaneous journeys and travel the way they want to. A 3-year target, everyone who loses their sight and needs support to relearn skills will get access to vision rehabilitation." Now, they're great aims. No one would argue with any of them, but I don't really see anything in the strategy and the consultation which shows how it's going to be any easier to get those things done than it was before.
Well, I think we are making some progress on some of those things. I mean, we wouldn't put them in and then not have a view as to how we could do them. I mean, I think if you take something like
rehab for everybody in 3 years' time. You've been campaigning on this for 30 years. It hasn't happened because the local authorities haven't got the money to do it.
Yeah, but I think let's pick up a couple of things there. First of all, on sort of eye care and eye health. One of the things we are investing in this strategy is our eye care liaison officers and actually having, getting to a sort of 100% coverage, by 2027. I mean, yeah, working with government and local government is tough, money's tight, but rehabilitation in its widest sense is working on access to technology. There's different ways to try and bring this about. So, I know there's a sort of lofty aspirations, but if the RNIB doesn't have lofty aspirations, who should? And I think you can see some tangible signs of life in the things I've just mentioned as examples.
I just want to come back as we're near the end of this on the feel of the organisation. There is this strong impression amongst the blind people that we've been talking to that it's very top down, that decisions are being handed down without much consultation, and you might take the transcription service as an example, largely by sighted people. This is what Steve Tyler, a former RNIB senior officer, said when we talked to him a few weeks ago.
More and more, we're seeing voluntary sector organisations being driven by very, very commercial decision-making processes. If you begin to focus much more on brand and reach and all of those things, you begin to lose sight of the services and the importance of the relationship. At the moment, if you look at the leadership in RNIB, and I'm not talking about trustees here, I'm talking about the senior leadership team, to my knowledge, there are no visually impaired staff at the top table and very few at the next level down. that's concerning. If you don't have people leading the ambition that genuinely can represent the needs and speak on behalf of people with visual impairments, I think that's a real challenge.
Matt, the suggestion, too money orientated, too few visually impaired people in positions to guide and influence policy. With 6 years now in the job behind you, what do you say to that?
First of all, I mean, Steve's, wanted to discount the trustees. I would include the trustees. I mean, the trustees here play a massive part, have done since we came out of the statutory inquiry. We have a visually impaired chair in Anna Tyler, as you know, and our statutes are that one of the chair of the CEO needs to be visually impaired to make sure we have that visually impaired leadership in the very upper reach of the organisation.
Is one enough?
Well, I was going to say, in my time, more than half of the trustees have been visually impaired. We appointed 3 new trustees last year. They were all visually impaired. And the trustees play an incredibly sort of hands-on role in steering and guiding the organisation. In terms of the senior leadership team, one of the things we do when we go out to recruit roles is the number one criterion with recruitment consultants is to find visually impaired candidates. And we're bending over backwards to scour the market to try and find people. We've lost a couple of visually impaired execs in David Clark and Keith Valentine in my time.
You give those 2 examples. Have they been replaced by visually impaired people?
No, they haven't. But I'm going to come on to say one of them has an 11-year-old visually impaired son. It's not lived experience, but I think we would call it learned experience. And we just recruited a new CFO who's gone through a lot of retinal surgery recently at Moorfields. So again, some understanding of how the health system does or doesn't work, around eye care. Steve mentions the commercial side of things there. Maybe just touch on that. Organisations need money. It's tough out there. And it's not wrong to try and be commercial when it comes to diversifying income streams and making money. Charities need to get a balance, don't they, between having the money coming in and be able to support all the services that we spent, the last few minutes talking about. So I think, we constantly try to get as much visually impaired leadership in the organisation as possible. And I think we're probably striking a balance about right between the commercial mindset and the charity mindset.
Matt, 6 years behind you, but at the end of the all-staff meeting the other day, you announced that you were leaving the RNIB at the end of this year. Why now, just when these changes have been put in place, which you've been advocating and defending?
Well, I've done 7 years by then, Peter. It's been my 50s, honestly. I think we're in good shape. I started when we were coming out to the statutory inquiry, or we're in the statutory inquiry. Spent 2 years helping us get out of it. And it was a real existential crisis, I think, for the RNIB. 6 years later, we're in much better nick.
Has this been a tougher job than you expected?
It's been a complete privilege to have the job. I mean, I do get how important the RNIB is in society for blind and partially sighted people, both in terms of service provision and advocacy. I think any job in the charity sector is a big challenging job. And this is a good time with the organisation in a really stable position, able to hand over the baton to someone who'll be very lucky to take over from me.
Matt Stringer, thank you very much for joining us. We'd like to hear your views on all the issues that we've raised and any you think we should have done but didn't. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. Leave your voice messages on 01618 361 338. From me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings. Goodbye.
Scaffolding and skips news for the week commencing the 18th of April 2025. Newport area. Fabian Barber's Shop, Pyle Street. Guildhall, Quayside, Quay Street. Newport area skips. Dolcroft Road, Rookley.
Ride area. Watson Bull and Porter, 9 High Street. Merry & Co., 73 High Street, 35 High Street, Bembridge, and Aspire, 35 to 36 High Street. Ride area skips, 28 Abingdon Street, The Lodge, Fairy Road, Seaview.
Cows area, Royal Yacht Squadron. Cows area skips, 13 Albany Road, East Cowes, 67 Moor Green Road, 18 Pelham Road.
Ventnor area, Church Street, The Taverners, God's Hill. Ventnor area skips, 48 Trinity Road.
Sandown area, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade. Viv's Cooking, 9 High Street. The Montpellier Hotel, 5 Pier Street. Sandown Area Skips, Station Avenue.
And Shanklin Area, 12 East Cliff Road.